Okay, so I've created my ship direction. So you can see down here, the type of attribute that I created was a number-based attribute. There's a couple of varieties of game attributes, but there's even more variety of like kind of private attributes of just regular attributes. But we needed a number one because we were trying to record the angle that the ship was facing. So if I go to here, you can see that you've got your getter and your setter. The difference between the two is a getter you use to kind of retrieve a number and to find a current value. So for example, if you had a car going at a certain speed and you wanted to record that number and display it somewhere, such as a speedometer, you could use you could retrieve this number here and display it as like a number on a speed gauge. And then a setter is something that you could define and change. So, for example, if pedal is pushed, you would set the speed of the car to a higher speed. So we're going to be using a setter in the spaceship and a getter in the bullet. So we're going to set the ship direction to the direction of self, which will be the way the bullet will face. We're not going to put it in any of these if statements because otherwise it won't constantly keep track of which way it's facing. So now if we go to the bullet, we can go to events, and we can go to attributes, and there you go, ship direction. Occasionally, if you have multiple objects open in the tab, there's a chance that they might actually not have this visible. This is usually because of the fact that you need to refresh the objects for the new attributes to be added in, which you can do by pressing like Control R or on a Mac Command R. So what I'm going to do now is I need to set the direction for the bullet to fly out at. So I'm going to go to Actor, and I am going to go to Motion because that's going to be setting it at a speed. And rather than changing the X speed or the Y speed, we're going to set the velocity, which is its, as we discussed in a previous video, speed in a certain direction. So if I go to Attributes and click and drag in Ship Direction, and then set the speed to something like 30, the bullet will now change its direction based on which way the ship's facing. What might also be a nice little feature is if you change the direction the bullet is facing when it's created. That also will make it so your bullets actually fire in, appear to be firing in the same direction. If you're using something like rectangular lasers or things like that, that has a particularly good effect. So what we should see is the ability to fire lasers now in any direction you want. Okay, so if I press space, you can see that I can now shoot in various directions. And this is great, but the problem is that we have ourselves a memory leak. So kind of a rough explanation of what a memory leak is over time, I'm firing bullets into the outside of the level and into the walls, and you can see that the frame rate is slowly beginning to drop, and it's getting more and more choppy. The reason is that those bullets aren't being destroyed, so they're just continuing to exist outside of the level, and because I've just been spamming the keyboard for a good 30 seconds there, that has created a lot of different objects. So what we need to do is tell it that when the bullets are, when the bullet exits the level, that we kill it. So if we kill tell the bullet to kill itself when it leaves the screen, that will stop it from being a problem. So that pretty much covers getting the bullets firing and launching in a certain direction. I'm just going to very quickly show you the difference between what this would look like with an updated, with an update event rather than a when created event, because you might see something a little bit different. And it's nice to experiment, between these things, because you can get some kind of different various effects. If you're wanting to deactivate a piece of code, you can click the little tick here, and that way it doesn't destroy the code, it just tells it not to run. So if I test this now, I should be able to see what difference it would make to have it constantly update the direction of the ship for the bullets. And whilst it may be kind of slightly unconventional how it looks, so you can see the bullets beginning to curve and change. Whilst it might look kind of bizarre, certain games might use this as a kind of use this mechanic to its advantage. You could potentially have a game where you're needing to guide your bullets very specifically. So if I really drop the speed to maybe 5 or something like that, you can see this effect a little bit better. But you might have like a game which requires you to guide your ship through waves of enemies to hit a target at the back, or you might be trying to think of examples of games that could use this off the top of my head, but this is great, is that you can kind of mess between these. So you see that there. So you now have essentially a kind of subtle guided bullet system. There you go. Can you see as well when that bullet moved off the screen? It didn't. When I changed the direction, it didn't come back. Yeah, so kind of a bizarre effect, but you could. I'm pretty sure there's definitely some cool things that you could do with it. Yeah, so those are just some kind of quick examples of how you can get yourself a basic projectile setup for your spaceship. For now, I'm going to delete this updated feature because it's not what I'm needing for my game. And in the next video, I'm going to start introducing the enemies. I think probably I'll focus on collision-based stuff. So getting it so you can shoot your enemies, and if you bump into them, you die. And then finally, we'll cover movement and maybe a couple of other things as well. Okay.